I'm going to skip forward to Edward III now. There are an awful lot of Edwards to get through. And he introduced some new coins, the Noble. Again, don't worry, it's just the name of the coin.
Where was I?
So the Noble was worth 80 pence, and that didn't actually catch on terribly well. It was a gold coin, didn't become very popular. But the half Noble and the quarter Noble, worth 14, 20 pence, but you probably worked that out, they did actually catch on and become quite popular. But there was a problem with gold coins. You see, the ratio of value, which I said was roughly 20 to 1, it wasn't absolutely constant, not just over time, but also over space. And on the continent, there are a lot of people who were valuing gold more highly than in England. So if you had a gold coin, what you could do is you could just take it abroad and just sell it for more than its face value, for its just raw gold money value, just the actual alloy, the material value, and you get more for it. And this happened further on as well. So in the Arab world, also the ratio between the value of gold and the value of silver wasn't exactly the same. So for a surprising amount of time, a mad trade went on with people thinking, oh, well, what I'll do is I'll buy a load of gold using silver, and then I'll take the gold to where gold is worth more than it is in ratio to silver where I am, and then I'll get loads of silver off them, and then I'll come back, and then I'll use the silver to buy more gold, and then I'll take the gold and just go around and around shipping coins back and forth, and no actual goods are changing hands. This is madness. This is no way to run an economy. Anyway, this was a problem because if you mint a load of gold coins and then people think, oh, well, great, it's made out of gold, real gold, okay, I'll go abroad and sell it, then all your coinage is going abroad. That's not what you want. So, what they could do is they could just say, do you know what, actually, no, it's not worth 80 pence, the Noble, it's worth 100 pence. So there you go. So now so that you're not going to take it abroad now because you can get something worth 100 pence for it here. It didn't work very well, unfortunately. Later, another gold coin called the Angel came along, and that was accepted and did become more popular. And again, it was worth 80 pence. But there was still that temptation to take the gold abroad when the prices were right. So that was one problem that kids had to deal with. Anyway, Edward III. So yes, he also brought in the Groat again, and this time it's still worth 4 pence, by the way, just as before. But this time it does catch on, becomes quite common. And so when you see that something costs so many groats, it's probably from his time or later, and it's just a multiple of 4 pence. So really quite simple. Now, let's go to Henry VII now. Henry VII, in 1489, he introduced the gold sovereign. And again, it's a gold coin, runs into a lot of the problems that other gold coins run into for the same reason. It was worth half a mark. Yeah, okay. Now I have to explain something else. What the hell was a mark then? Because in loads of history books, you're told that we look at the accounts for this year and see that the king spent so many marks on this and so many marks on that, and this cost so many marks. So this was the currency they were using. It was the mark, because it's not a pound, it's not a shilling, it's not a pence, it's a mark. So what's that then? Show me, go on, show me a coin that's a mark. There isn't one. There was no coin that was the mark. These were not German coins, it's not like the German mark, no, no. Instead, it was an accountancy term. It was a convenient subdivision of a pound. So, if you imagine there's 0 pence here and there's a pound here, you have 2 marks in between, the mark and the half mark. So, half a mark was 1/3 of a pound, and the mark was 2/3 of a pound. Now you might think, well, how is that convenient? Well, that's because you are probably used to modern decimalised coinage, and so you never think in terms of dividing everything by 3, because you can't do that in this happened to me a while ago. I had a gig, and there were 3 of us dancing, and we got, I think, 100 quid, and we were given £10 note. Yeah, decimalised coinage. You can't divide anything by 3. You just try, and you get 33.33333 recurring, and there's no coin for that. You can't divide anything by 3, which is ridiculous if you think about it. Now, if you're picking a currency, you really want it to be divisible by 2. don't you? I mean, nobody has 99 pence to the pound because if you wanted to halve it, okay, I'll split it with you. Oh, I can't exactly because it's 99 pence to a pound. This is £1, so one of us has to get an extra penny. What, you know, no one would have an odd number of pence to a pound or to a dollar or to whatever currency that you're trying to split into parts. Well, no, you wouldn't, would you? So, after 1, 2 is clearly the most important number. You want something divisible by 2. And what's the next most important number? Well, 3. And there are actually quite a lot of numbers that divide by 3. In fact, 1 in 3 numbers divides by 3, and yet decimalized coinage has picked a number, 100, that doesn't divide by 3. And because it doesn't divide by 3, and it's so inconvenient to even try, nobody ever does, and so nobody ever thinks about the convenience that there would be if you could just divide things by 3. But it was Charlemagne. It was Charlemagne, the emperor of Europe, if you like. He set the value of a pound as 240 pence. And this was not just, so it's not, I'm saying now, it wasn't just an English thing. It wasn't that the English had this weird quirk of having 240 pence to a pound. No, it was actually used all around Christendom. But other places went to decimalization so many generations ago that people have forgotten this. There were 240 somethings to something all around Europe. So there were 240 pence to a pound, so that divides by 3. So actually, it's a convenient, it's a third of a pound. And grouping things in 3s is actually very convenient. Beginning, middle, and end. Early, mid, and late period. There are loads of things that just naturally go into 3. A lot of things in life conveniently divide into 3. But you can't divide decimal coinage that way, so people don't. But back then, they did a lot of the time. Hence, the mark. Okay, so there you go, the mark. It's not a coin, it's an accountancy convenience. It's a convention. Things were counted in marks. And one of the reasons for that is that a pound was really quite a lot of money. So if you're trying to be a penny-pinching accountant, you're going to want to deal in a smaller unit, perhaps, than a pound. So they did, in the mark, on paper. Right, so that's my tangent into marks. How do I get back? What was I talking about? Oh, yes! Henry VII, I was talking about, and Henry VII also introduced another coin called the testoon. Don't worry, it's just the name of a coin, and it was worth 1 shilling. It didn't really catch on so well. It got on a bit in Scotland, where it got copied, the testoon, but in England, not straight away. It didn't become very common in Henry VII's time, but under Henry VIII, then the testoon, which people after a while stopped calling it the testoon, and they started calling it the shilling, it did under Henry VIII become very common. Now, I've talked to you about a couple of times in English history already when our coinage, I say our, when the coinage, I wasn't alive at the time, I have no, I gain no credit. I deserve no credit for any of the quality of the coinage in medieval England. But anyway, in English coinage, it was really good. But under Henry VIII, I have to say, though I've said things in defense of Henry VIII in many ways, his coinage was a bit rubbish. Under Henry VIII, on his watch, despite the fact that there was even then at his time in the Tower of London, where he should have been keeping more of an eye on things, yeah, the coinage got horribly debased. So much so that one of his nicknames was Old Coppernose. Now, I should explain. It was the tradition to portray the king in profile on a coin. I suppose one reason is just it's easier. But under Henry VIII, it came to full face. And now we're starting to get quite realistic portraits for once. The early kings, they just looked like some bloke. Whereas the portraits of Henry VIII were quite definitely, yep, that's him, that's our Henry. We've got to see him to go from young king to fat, full-faced, front-on king in his later years. Now, what's the most prominent part of a portrait if you're face on? Well, it's the tip of the nose. So if some cad has, rather than making a solid silver coin, used a copper blank, plated it in silver, and then stamped that with the dies, then after the coin has been in circulation for a bit and worn down a little bit, what's the first bit to reveal the copper? Yeah, the tip of his nose would wear away and would change colour to copper. Oops. So there you go, that was a nickname for Henry VIII, although I doubt many people actually called him that to his face, and lived. Right, so things went downhill on the coinage front under Henry VIII, but it's all right because under Elizabeth I, his daughter, things got better again, and she put quite a bit of effort into making coins worth what they really should be worth. So a lot of coinage that had been debased, she revalued. So something that was meant to be worth, say, a shilling, oh no, that's actually only worth 4 pence or something because it's been debased. And she made things the right value, and she introduced milling, or rather someone during her reign introduced milling, that is adding detail to the edge of the coin all the way around, so if someone were to file it down or try to clip, then this would immediately show. And so if you see something that's not got the milling clear all the way around the edge, well, don't accept the coin because it might be underweight. Admittedly, though it was introduced in her time, it didn't actually become the norm. It was horsepower being used for putting the milling on, and apparently it was quite a lengthy and expensive process, and the guy who developed the process, he went on to do other things. There was a bit of ill will, it seems, and so the milling didn't carry on for very long, but at least it was started under Elizabeth I. I realised that I've missed out that in 1551, Edward there's so many Edwards, Sixth, yes, Edward VI, he brought in the crown and the half crown. Again, they're just coins. Don't worry, the crown is a quarter of a pound, which is 240 pence. Come on, work it out. It's 5 shillings. Well done. So. Let's skip ahead now to James I, and James I brings in copper farthings. That's right, the earlier ones were silver. I was right to correct myself. I think that's enough of the innovations